Okay, hello everyone. Today's topic is how employment website Indeed is using artificial intelligence. And my guest today is Raj Mukherjee, who is the Executive Vice President and General Manager for Employer at Indeed. Welcome, Raj.
Bernard, so great to be here.
Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Austin, Texas, in the
Lovely.
middle of a hot summer.
Hot summers, yes. It's quite warm here in London as well at the moment. Not quite Austin, Texas. So maybe we can start by you giving us a bit of an overview of what you do and what your role encompasses at Indeed.
Uh, so I've been with Indeed for about 7 years now. This is coming up to 7 years. I had several roles at the company, but quite recently, I would say around the February of this year, my role changed to leading all of employer products at Indeed. So
Hmm.
anything that is required to help an employer be successful with hiring, and how do we ensure that those products are appropriately sold to the market. That's really what I'm overseeing. And in effect, you can think of it as our touch point with all employers, large or small. That's my job.
Very, very good. So maybe you are in a great position to give us an overview of the global job market at the moment and why it is that many companies are still finding it difficult to recruit. And maybe you can give us an overview of what you are hearing from your customers around some of the pain points when it comes to the recruitment process.
Great question. As the world's number one job site, Indeed has a front row to what's happening across the global labor market. So after COVID, which I know people feel like it's been ages, but it happened just fairly recently. After COVID, we saw a huge rise in job postings on Indeed, and as the world reopened. And now we have seen things cool down. The labor market has slowed. I'll give you a couple of data points that are interesting. In US, year over year job postings are down by 16%. In UK, it's down by 21%. So you can see that, yeah, it is definitely slowing down. However, the labor market is still tight, even though you can say that the balance has tilted a bit to the employer, it's still very tight. And particularly, demand for workers is very high in certain segments. I'll give you a couple of segments that may seem obvious to our listeners, but they're real in terms of the pain that employers face in hiring in those areas. In the UK, ONS data shows that on overall there's 1 million job vacancies, and majority of them are in the healthcare sector. And also a lot of the jobs all exist in the construction sector as well,
Hmm.
which perennially you are looking to hire construction workers. They're in high demand, as is the case with healthcare as well.
Interesting. So, for anyone who doesn't know Indeed, maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview of the platform. And what I'm particularly interested in is how you're using AI to help match and connect businesses with talent.
Yeah. So Indeed has been around, I would say, for almost 18 years now. We started way back when, right after the dot-com boom bust, a little bit after that. And the original idea of Indeed was fairly simple. One search, all jobs. We're going to aggregate all jobs in one place and help job seekers find the best opportunities they can through the search engine that we had. And so now over time, we have evolved and we believe we have morphed into or transformed into a matching and hiring marketplace or a matching and hiring platform. That's really how you should think about us. A matching and hiring platform is where any employer of any size can come in and share their hiring need, their job posting with us, and we intend or attempt to delight them with instantly matching them with qualified candidates on our platform. That leads to better connections and faster hiring. That's really what we are driving, and we have to do it globally. Otherwise, we won't be successful in our mission, which is we help people get jobs. That's been at the call it at the center of the company.
Hmm.
That's what everybody comes to work every single day in the company, looking forward to helping more and more job seekers get hired. So that's a little bit about Indeed. Now, as it relates to your second part of your question, which is a rather interesting and important question, how are we thinking about AI? I think it's in the context. Let me take a step back and let me give you a brief sense of some of the challenges that we foresee in hiring. I think that's where all of this, because technology at the end of the day is to serve the needs of our customers.
Hmm.
That's what it should be doing. So we recently ran an employer survey that told us about the top five barriers that employers have. Some of them, again, may seem obvious to our listeners. Poorly matched candidates, 52% of employers say that's a really big pain point. And then you have things like time it takes to hire, competition to hire, not enough applications, and also lack of people resources to manage hiring process.
Hmm.
And this one is really important. During COVID or post COVID, if I may say, you saw a splurge in hiring. A lot of people got hired. So the HR departments also became bigger.
Hmm.
But now we have seen some trimming in the HR departments, and the HR departments are being asked to do more with less people.
Hmm.
Still 1 million vacancies. How do you hire them, but you have less people? So that's where I think technology comes in. And we really need to make better use of technology, technology that matches automatically to quality candidates. This is what 9 in 10 employers are telling us. Technology that directly connects to quality candidates on the platform itself. Again, same 9 in 10 employers are saying the same thing. And then automate the what I call the grunt work in the hiring process. I haven't talked to any recruiter or any hiring manager who loves going through like hundreds of resumes and say, let me pick the three. That's not fun. That's You want to talk to the person, you want to know the person better. What you and I are doing here is what many HR managers and recruiters would say it should be their day-to-day job. Like, so I think that's not happening in the scale that we want. And so our intent is to reduce the time it takes to fill the open roles. And that's where Indeed has a very big role to play. I'll give you a statistics. I talked about scale. I think this is actually a statistics that makes me extremely happy. Um, we make more than 20 hires per minute on Indeed. That is more than double 3 years ago. And that's a very good measurement, how many people we are helping get hired through our platform. If that number increases every minute, then we have done something valuable for society. And then we have the right to exist. I think that's how we think about it. Now, how does this all tie back to AI? Well, I talked about a couple of things there, Bernard, that are so central: matching, connections, automation. These things are all at the center point of AI. And the whole world, I mean, I was reading your piece on AI and how every job is going to change in the next, call it, however many years. And it's such a beautiful piece. Highly recommend, if people have not read it, to read Bernard's piece on uh, basically pretty much every job, how it's going to transform in the next decade. And the reason I bring that up is, if every job changes, so does HR. And so is the expectation around how hiring should be done. And so our job is to enable every single HR professional, which I actually think every person is who hires is an HR professional in some ways. They're hiring for their team, even if they're not doing hiring at scale. They need to have better tools and technologies to match and connect with job seekers, knowing that today it's very frustrating. And many people, I gave you some examples of poorly matched candidates being more than half of employers saying that that's not a good thing. So, how do we solve that problem? I'll stop there. I think there's so much to dig into AI. I want to give you a chance to, because I don't want to become a monologue here.
No, and I found it fascinating. I was just listening. Thank you very much for mentioning my article. So I'm particularly interested in how you're using AI in the matching process. So
Yes.
how does that actually work in practice? What sort of data points are you using? What AI are you using? That would be really interesting for me to understand a bit better.
Very well. So we are solving the, broadly, you understand, we're solving pain points in hiring on both sides. Comes down to three big things: preferences, speed, and AI and technology. That's how we think about this. So the first, the preferences. Every day on average, Indeed uses more than 140 million qualifications and preferences to do matching. And this is data that voluntarily job seekers and employers are giving us. And you can say, what kind of data? Well, skills that I have for my job, certifications as a job seeker, occupational specialties, my interest in pay, or the salary that I'm willing to pay for a job, the location of the job. All of these are preferences that employers and job seekers are giving us that enables us to match. And oftentimes, this leads to very interesting dialogues on matching. Like somebody who might be, call it a cashier in a restaurant, may have very good skills, that is, transferable skills, to move into a job as a bank teller. So it's not always that we are going to match a very linear way. Like you are a bank teller, so the next job could be a bank manager. No, oftentimes entry level jobs, they can come from anywhere. So again, that's the preference aspect. That's the first one. Second is the speed aspect. And so we know employers want to hire faster, and we have this. We have both a free product and a sponsored jobs product. In fact, more employers use us for our free product than our paid product. And that's okay because the employers get a ton of value. Many job seekers get hired. That's what you're looking for. But if you do use our paid product, it leads to 19% faster hiring. And you might say, how? Well, one of the first things that happens is the moment you post a job on Indeed, we match you to candidates and we ask you to invite them to apply. And when you do that, it's 2x more likely, two times more likely that you will actually make a hire. So that's the second part. That's the speed part. So preference, speed. The last part is around AI. And this part, the whole world has had its eureka moment in many ways in the last few months, where everybody's talking about AI. There's not a single person, anyone that I know of. They're all talking about AI, which is very exciting for us. Uh, but also, AI is not a new concept to Indeed. We've been doing this for years and years. Our founding principles were around machine learning. And so, what we leverage around AI technology, obviously, we use standard machine learning techniques. We also use deep learning, which is basically what is the foundation of generative AI as well, many forms of natural language processing. And now we are also leveraging what is becoming a very, I would call it, standard way of operating in this new world, which is generative AI or large language models. And so you can expect us to leverage any technique around this world of AI to improve the experience for job seekers and employers with the central goal: how can we help more job seekers get hired faster? That's really what we are trying to do, because technology, again, is at the service of humans. So we have all this data that we are collecting, all the preference data. I told you about the number of job seekers, 300 million job seekers coming and visiting us. So all this scale data, we are going to use that. On the other hand, you have employers, more than 3 million employers who are coming in. And then our job is to take all those preferences, understand from job seeker and employer feedback, are we making the right matches? And then use that underneath with our algorithms and deliver delightful experiences.
Yeah,
That's really
just
what we're doing. Yep.
yeah, just out of interest, the preference data that you get from employers and employees, how is this generated? So is this all input from people? Do they all explicitly need to input this, or do you also use AI to extract potential preferences that people might have? So, and is this something you want to do more of in the future?
Very, very good question. And it's a deep question. And the short answer is both. So let's start with first structured preferences. So if you came in as a job seeker and you might say, I really want to live in Austin, Texas. That's a very stated location preference, and you give it to us. And we are collecting that data and we are going to honor your preference. And we're going to say, okay, Raj really wants a job in Austin, Texas, so let's not show him jobs anywhere else. So that's a very stated preference. Then there are unstated preferences. These unstated preferences are inferred based on your behavior. I may not give you a location preference, but I might be searching for jobs in Seattle. And so we can infer based on your search behavior that, oh, Raj is actually looking to maybe relocate to Seattle. We might confirm that preference by asking you a question later on and saying, hey, it seems like you're looking for jobs in Seattle. Are you thinking of moving to Seattle? So that's an example. Or London. If I want to move to London, you might ask that question. That's inferred preferences that we are going to look at your behavioral data and make some judgment calls. And then there is content that Raj might have shared. So I might have a resume that I've shared with you, and that resume has lots of data about me, my past experiences, where I worked, what type of skills I had in those. And we are going to understand that using, again, parsing technology that we have, but also then starting to use machine learning at a very deep level to extract the right skills. And we can go as much in depth as you want, because ultimately what we are trying to categorize is based on the occupation that Raj is in. So in my case, let's say for a second, I'm dating myself a few years back. I was a product manager. So product management skills. So what kind of product management skills does he have? Has he worked with customers? That's a core product management skills. Has he shipped anything of value? Has he worked in a company that actually ships products to end users? So all of those things you can start to infer, and you can
Mm.
learn. Again, the machine doesn't know anything. The machine is like a child. It is learning based on what you're training it to. And so when you say, hey, Raj worked at Microsoft or Google, they don't mean anything to the machine, but then you can start to categorize those as companies. You can say, okay, he worked at Microsoft from this year to this year, or he worked at Indeed from this year to this year. This is what he's focused on. You can start to create a picture in the machine, and then that will lead to matching Raj to better opportunities. The same thing applies on the employer side, because we have billions of job descriptions that we have extracted over the years, data, structured data, which could be location, a very location specific preference could be I'm going to hire in Austin, Texas, or in London. Also, there are many, many more things that you have just written in your job description that we will extract.
Mm.
You might say, hey, this job requires customer facing work. We'll infer that. And then we will suggest specific questions that you might want to ask job seekers that will enable you to understand whether this job seeker is going to be good at customer facing work. We can also create, we have actually created a corpus of assessments that are tied to that particular job. So let's say, again, moving on to a different job category, customer service. So it might be communication skills is a very important part. And since we are talking to someone who is in Europe, I'll say maybe multiple languages, right? So you want English and French in this case, let's say. And so you might create an assessment that requires both for me to prove that I'm proficient in English and French. And that is an assessment you can send as part of the application process. So when a job seeker answers their questions, they will also take assessment that proves that they're proficient in these two languages. So all of this is to say all of that data, the structured data, the assessments data, the questions data, the content data that we have parsed and understood, and the machine has been trained on it, all of that is, you can think of it as a giant combo of data that we have put in. And then that leads to better job matches for job seekers and better candidate matches for employers.
Very good. And there's so much discussion around AI recently, as you've mentioned, especially around productivity.
Mhm.
So how does AI improve hiring overall?
Very, very, very good question. Like this is at the center of everything that we do. Like ultimately, I would say AI should unlock human potential. It should make human beings really much faster and much more capable at doing their jobs. And this goes to again your article, which as I said, I really liked how you framed it and how every job is going to change. I actually think many jobs will disappear. So this is someone who is in the jobs industry who is saying this. Many jobs will disappear. That's a fact. It has happened. Every technology revolution has led to jobs disappearing. I'll give you a very funny story. Back in the day, in 1800s, late 1800s, there used to be a role where somebody would go and knock at people's windows to wake them up. That was a real job. And then alarm clocks came, a mechanical device that basically took that job away. That, and I'm told that in certain parts of the world, even today, there are people who go and knock. I'll tell you my funny story. I knock my daughter's door every single morning to wake her up. So that job still exists as a dad. So the point being, jobs disappear, but new jobs get created, and there will be so many more new jobs that will be created as part of this AI revolution. And every job will change. Your job will change. My job will change. Like as a journalist, you will have tools that never existed for you before. You'll leverage generative AI in ways that I don't even know, you don't even know. And same story for me. So I think the point being, we need to be broadly bullish about this revolution that is coming our way, whether we like it or not. This is coming our way. So how do we leverage that, and how do we make HR broadly, the overall human resources function, much more effective at hiring? And effective at hiring comes down to, very simplistically, two very important things: matching and connections, and automation. So, matching and connection, how do we, three in four job seekers don't hear back? That is not good matching. That is such a big waste. So, we want to ensure a world where if a job seeker applies to a job, they have more than 80% chance of hearing back, or maybe even 100% chance of hearing back. How do we get to that world? How do we get to the world where, and then when an employer sees a candidate, they're like, yeah, I want to reach out to this candidate. That's a really good match. And then they connect in a platform where they actually want to talk to each other and have this human connection. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it is, there's so much work that goes on in hiring that is not clear value add. When I talk to recruiters, they say they have dozens of tools. And then they literally, like, I've seen people tear their hair apart. Like, I don't know which tool to use for what. I'm so confused. So how about an end-to-end hiring platform? I understand this feels like an infomercial for Indeed, but it's not. I'm actually okay if something else is really good for you. That's fine. But use an end-to-end hiring platform that allows you to do the matching and connection and the automation of your tasks that you don't want to do. And we fundamentally believe we are doing that really well and much better than anyone else in the industry. So we want the business from everyone. That's just a fact. And I think if we do those things, it will unlock the human potential. And honestly, the human in human resources will become amplified. Technology should amplify the human in human resources.
Yeah, I completely agree. Are there any areas that you feel AI can't really or shouldn't automate or replace to some extent?
AI can never replace human connection. Like, this is really important. Do I want to? Let's pretend for a second you are someone I'm going to work for. Let's just pretend that's going to happen in a job context. And I would really like to know you as a person.
Mm.
I would really like to know how you're going to work with me. That is not possible with AI. AI is not going to be able to help me understand who is Bernard as a human being. How is it like to work with him? What things really get him excited? What things trigger him? These are things that are so innately human. That's what makes human beings who we are. We, yes, a part of us, we are machines, I agree. But a large part of us, we are an emotive machine, people who are able to have a very different way of interaction when we talk to each other. And so I think if we can, like, let's pretend, I don't have this number in front of me, but let's pretend there's a lot of wastage in the system today in going through resumes, in actually figuring out who I should talk to. If those things go away, and if the work is to talk to someone and actually help them understand why this could be a great fit for them, wouldn't that be much more delightful than what we do today? And that's what AI is at the service of. That's why, again, you can see I'm not I'm an optimist. I will be very clear. I'm an optimist. I want the world to get better, but at the same time, I'm also a realist. I know AI has challenges, and we need to be careful in using this technology. Which I have said this multiple times. Like, AI is like electricity. You have to deal with care. It can revolutionize everything, but you don't want to touch electricity in a way that is going to harm you.
The one type of AI that everyone is talking about right now is generative AI.
Mhm.
What role do you see for generative AI to play in the hiring process and within Indeed, maybe?
Oh, I mean, how much time have we got?
Pardon?
Like, how much time have we got?
We've got plenty of time.
I know, I know. So the way I would say it, Bernard, generative AI is going to change pretty much everything that we have done for so many years. Let's start with something very basic: job descriptions. Job descriptions have existed ever since we have hired. Uh, at Indeed, we have experiment going on. Everything at Indeed is a form of experiment. We learn, we ship something, we learn from customer experience, and then we decide whether to make that experience permanent or not. Um, we are experimenting with automating the job description itself. And a lot of customers, at least based on our initial study, are excited about it. So the question there is, I have not met anyone who says they're an expert in creating a great job description. I have not. But the machine can become a really good tool to start off with. I'm not saying we'll completely eliminate the human touch. Maybe the human beings will go and edit some stuff that will really reflect on the job description. But you don't have to look at a blank piece of paper. You can start with something that is a really good initial uh, job description and then make it personalized. That's a very basic, simple like way of using generative AI. Second, we in sourcing, people reach out to candidates, and oftentimes they reach out, and it's a lot of grunt work, and they have to do it, personalize it for every single individual. What if AI, generative AI, could start to recommend, hey, for Bernard, this is a good starting point as an email that you should send Bernard. Again, very doable with the data that we have and with generative AI techniques. Why can't we do that? Assessments, I gave you some examples around that. How can we create personalized assessments, personalized screener questions, and I can go on and on. Like there is a, today you can imagine that there is an interface for search is at Indeed. It's a, hey, you come in, you type a location, and you type a job title. Why does it have to be like that? Why can't it be much more interactive?
Hmm.
So every single piece of the Indeed experience, of the HR experience, can be reimagined using generative AI, and that's what we are going to do over the next however many years. We are going to work on generative AI. So really, the short answer is, I genuinely believe everything that we do today will be affected and will change over the next decade.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the potential of AI in the hiring process is immense. And the whole goal is to make it more human, more personal. So I very much agree. We've talked a little bit about how employers will benefit, how it drives productivity in the hiring process, but how do job seekers feel the benefits of that?
Yeah, so let's go back to one of the most gut wrenching stats that, this reminds me why our job is not at all done. 3 in 4 job seekers don't hear back when they apply to a job. That should give us a pause. As an industry, we are failing every single individual who are applying to a job and never hear back. Like even a rejection, while it's not great, is better than not hearing back. So, how do we get to a world where job seekers don't have to apply to so many jobs? They can come in and have, quote unquote, I call it a personalized agent. Like, how can you get to the world where, and this is looking a little bit further into the future, like you can come and share your preferences. I just told you, Indeed has collects more than 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. How can you share the preferences and qualifications with a machine, and that machine understands you and returns back jobs that you have close to 100% chance of hearing back? That is a good match for you. And once you have a good match, how can you, as a job seeker, continue to engage with that machine that helps you grow in your career? Like it's not a one time thing. Like you get a great job. How can it help you find better opportunities throughout your career? How can it become a career companion? And so all of these things ultimately is at the service of helping more people get jobs and helping more people be successful at their jobs. And so our mission at Indeed first and foremost is to help more people get jobs. And that's where again the core of matching comes in. Like we really need to nail that and enable that at a scale that we still haven't been able to do. You might say, hey, 300 million job seekers, that's great. Well, no, there are billions of job seekers across the world. They need our help. How do we do that? And we want to cut the job search time by half. That's a stated goal by 2030. And we genuinely believe we can do that. And that's really where the job seeker part comes in.
Good. Um, we've talked a lot about the technology that you're using at Indeed that really hopefully sets you apart as an organization, especially AI, data. Um, Again, one of the technologies that I watch very closely is the more immersive internet. So that the fact that we will have the ability to become avatars, have more 3D models. Is this something you see becoming part of the hiring process in the future?
Maybe, maybe. This is the realist part of me coming in, not the optimist part of me coming in. For a while, um everything was going to the metaverse, and people just said, "Oh, everybody is going to imagine everything in the 3D world, and they're not going to physically visit places." This goes to a very fundamental human need. We do need to feel and touch things. And I was talking to my sister-in-law. She is visiting Europe right now, and she has seen movies about Europe for a long time. This is the first time she's actually spending almost a month in different parts of Europe. And she was like, "I have never felt this immense amount of joy by being in Italy or Spain or wherever else in Europe that she's traveling." She's just totally enamored by all the things that she's seeing in front of her. But she has seen Sistine Chapel before in pictures in 3D. She's seen it in movies, but not just in 2D. Like, she's actually seen it in 3D in different places. She has a VR set. She's a technologist. She has a VR set, but it's not the same. And so I do think while there will be a role for what you just described, will we all have avatars that will negotiate with each other and whatnot? Perhaps yes. I'm not going to say no to that, but I do think this innate need for human beings to touch and feel, to see each other, to be able to understand what it is, that is not going to go away. That's what makes us human.
Yeah, I love the fact that you emphasize this now a few times that technology should make us more human, not less human.
Correct.
Um, the final question then is, what about the future are you most worried about and most excited about?
Let's start with the worry first. Um, while there are so many good things, let's just go back to generative AI. There are so many good things about generative AI. The fact is, generative AI is also going to enable malicious actors to use technology in nefarious ways. It may also perpetuate biases, human biases, that we want to get rid of. When you are talking about the job seeker part, I'll go back there for a second. Oftentimes, job seekers are discriminated against for no fault of theirs. And the world we want to create in the future needs to be more equitable, needs to be fairer. And there is a risk that technology not used wisely, not used responsibly, could fall in the hands of bad actors and also could perpetuate human bias in ways that was never intended to be the case. And those are just, I mean, we can spend hours on just the challenges. Cybersecurity being a classic example. I mean, we see this every single day, and it can become worse and worse. So, short answer on that part, yeah, I mean, we have to be very careful in leveraging this type of technology, just like we have to be careful in leveraging electricity. We don't want to leverage it in a wrong way. On the optimism side, I would say technology and AI is very much like you described in your article, going to change every single aspect of the hiring industry. It is. And I speak about the hiring industry, it's going to change every industry. And hiring industry touches every industry actually. So in I do believe over the long haul, what will end up happening is all of us will enjoy our jobs more. We will do less of the stuff that we don't want to do, and we'll do more of the stuff that we want to do. That's what will end up happening. That's the optimistic or the realistic side of me speaking. And I do want to make that happen myself as well.
That's a fantastic way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Raj, for your time today. That was truly inspiring, really insightful, and thank you so much for joining me. Um,
Bernard, very, very appreciate the time you've given me, and hopefully we'll get to talk again.
Pleasure. And anyone who ever wants to rewatch or re-listen to this conversation, simply head to my YouTube channel or my podcast where you can find this one and hundreds of other similar conversations. Thank you very much.